A trembling hand pushes a worn envelope across the polished mahogany desk. The man in the tailored black suit doesn't move, his eyes fixed on the child's bruised knuckles, the dirt caked under her nails. The hospital bill that reads 47 million Korean wons. She came to the most dangerous man in Seoul because she had nowhere else left to go. Inside that envelope was a photograph, but not of her dying mother. What nobody knew was that this man had been searching for this exact child for 3 years. The amount she needed was pocket change to him, but he didn't reach for his wallet. His hand shook as he stared at her face. Because in his private safe, locked away from his entire organization, he kept a photo of this girl's mother wearing a Korean wedding dress. Her name was Maya Bennett, 8 years old, homeless for 6 months. She believed walking into this restaurant was the worst decision of her life. She'd spent 2 days building the courage, rehearsing the words, knowing she might not walk out. What she didn't know was that the moment she said her mother's name, Grace Bennett, and everything in that room changed. The crime lord's glass of whiskey slipped from his hand. His bodyguards reached for their weapons, but he held up one hand, stopping them cold. Then he asked her a single question. "When is your birthday?" What happened next would reveal why a crime lord carried a photo of Maya's mother for 18 years, why monthly payments suddenly stopped 3 months ago, and the reason Maya's birth certificate bore a symbol that matched the ring on his finger. But before I show you why the most feared man in Seoul's underworld went completely silent when he heard that name, you need to understand how a Black American woman and a Korean enforcer's paths ever crossed in the first place. Because this story didn't start in that restaurant on a desperate winter night. It started in 2003, in a shipping container on the other side of the world, when a wounded man named Tae-won Kong made a choice that would echo across 2 decades. He thought he'd buried that night forever. He was wrong. To understand how an 8-year-old homeless girl walked into Seoul's most dangerous restaurant and changed everything, we need to go back 6 months, to March 2024, when Maya Bennett's world fell apart. Maya had always been different in Seoul. Half black, half-unknown father. That's what her mother Grace told her when she asked. They'd lived in Itaewon for 3 years, ever since moving from a small apartment across the city. Grace sold handmade jewelry at street markets. Maya helped by carrying supplies and smiling at customers. People bought more when Maya smiled. But in March, Grace collapsed at the market. The hospital diagnosis came back fast and brutal. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Advanced. Aggressive. The kind that steals months, not years. The bill was 47 million Korean wons. What Maya didn't know as she stared at that impossible number. Someone had been paying for their lives for 18 years. And 3 months ago, that someone decided to stop. They lost their apartment 2 weeks later. Couldn't pay rent. Maya learned quickly how to sleep in abandoned buildings near Dongdaemun. She collected recyclables during the day, plastic bottles, cardboard, anything that bought them food. Grace was too weak to work, too weak to walk most days. Now, Maya thought the worst part was watching her mother fade. The weight loss, the gray skin, the way Grace's hands shook when she tried to braid Maya's hair. But here's what Maya didn't discover until 3 months later, sitting in a crime lord's private office. Grace had been receiving help that suddenly vanished in January, exactly 2 months before the cancer diagnosis. The timing wasn't a coincidence. Someone had been watching them. Someone had stopped the money deliberately, and Grace never told Maya any of it existed. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Back in March, Maya had no idea. What Maya also didn't know, 3 blocks away, in a luxury restaurant's private surveillance room, Tae-won Kong sat watching security footage from cameras positioned throughout Itaewon. He'd been watching for 3 years, not for enemies, but for a face he'd never seen but somehow knew. When Maya's image flickered across the screen on March 15th, carrying her mother's jewelry case through the market, his hand shook so violently he dropped his glass of whiskey. It shattered on the marble floor. His second-in-command rushed in, found him frozen, staring at the monitor. The photograph in Tae-won's private safe showed a woman he hadn't seen in 18 years, Grace Bennett holding a newborn baby, wearing a white and red Korean wedding hanbok. The baby's face was blurry in that old photo. But now, on this screen, he saw her clearly. The curve of her jaw. The way she held her head. She looked exactly like Grace. And exactly like him. But Taewon didn't approach. Not yet. He needed to be sure. Back in Maya's world, things got stranger. A black Mercedes started appearing on her route. Same car. Same time. Every evening when she walked back to the abandoned building they called home. First, Maya thought it was paranoia. Homeless people got tracked sometimes by police or gangs. But this car never stopped. Never threatened. Just watched. She told Grace about it one night. Grace's reaction was wrong. Her mother's eyes went wide, then filled with tears. "Stay away from black cars," Grace whispered. "Promise me, baby. Stay away." Maya promised, but she didn't understand. Grace wouldn't explain. She just held Maya tighter than usual and cried until she fell asleep. By June, Grace couldn't get out of bed anymore. The pain was constant. Maya knew what came next. She'd seen enough people die on the streets. Her mother was dying, and Maya had no money, no family, no options. That's when she started asking questions. Desperate questions. She asked other homeless people in Itaewon. Who has money? Real money? The kind that could pay a hospital bill. Everyone gave the same answer. The same warning. The man in the black suit, Taewon Kong, owns the restaurant on the corner. But don't go near him, kid. People who bother him don't come back. Maya didn't care about warnings anymore. She cared about her mother. She spent 2 days watching the restaurant, learning the rhythms. She saw men in suits enter through the back. Saw them leave hours later looking nervous. This was the place. This was the man. On June 15th, Maya walked through the front door with an envelope in her shaking hands. But to understand why Taewon Kong went completely silent when she said Grace's name, we need to go back further. Back to May 2003. Back to a shipping container in an international port city, where a wounded Korean enforcer named Taewon was bleeding out with 2 bullet holes in his chest. Taewon hadn't been in that port city for business. He'd been running for his life. A rival Korean syndicate had put a hit on him, internal politics, betrayal, the usual chaos of criminal organizations. They'd shot him twice at the docks. Left him for dead in a shipping container. He was 21 years old. He'd been in the organization since he was 16. And now he was dying alone. Thousands of miles from Seoul, bleeding onto rusted metal. That's when he heard footsteps. A woman's voice. American accent. "Oh my God. Hey, can you hear me?" Grace Bennett, medical volunteer with an international relief organization. She'd been at the ports distributing supplies. But here's what Taewon wouldn't learn until years later. Grace hadn't been there by accident. Her grandmother, a woman who'd predicted 3 pregnancies, 2 deaths, and 1 miracle in their family, had told Grace 3 weeks earlier. "You need to go to the ports, every day. You're waiting for a stranger who arrives in metal. You'll save him. And one day, he'll give you a daughter who saves him back." Grace thought her grandmother was losing her mind. But she went anyway. She waited. And on May 3rd, 2003, she found him. She dragged Taewon out of that container. Got him to her tiny studio apartment. She performed emergency surgery with black market medical supplies, sutures, antibiotics, painkillers. She had no surgical training beyond volunteer first aid. But she had steady hands and no other choice. For 3 days, she kept him alive while his hunters searched the city. She hid him, fed him, cleaned his wounds, saved his life. What she didn't tell him during those 3 days. She'd been waiting for 3 weeks, showing up at the ports every single morning, thinking her grandmother had lost her mind, until he arrived. And when Taewon finally woke up and asked why she'd done it, Grace smiled and said something that made no sense. "My grandmother told me you were coming." Back in that restaurant on June 15th, 2024, Taewon Kong hadn't spoken for 30 seconds. He just stared at Maya across the mahogany desk. When she'd said her mother's name, Grace Bennett, it was the first time he'd heard it spoken aloud in 18 years. His bodyguards stood frozen by the door. They'd never seen their boss like this. Taewon's hand was still in midair from stopping them from drawing weapons. His glass of whiskey lay shattered on the floor. Nobody moved. Then Tae-won stood up slowly. "Everyone out," he said in Korean. His voice was quiet, but his men knew that tone. They left immediately, closing the door behind them. Maya's heart pounded. She was alone with him now. This man everyone warned her about. The most dangerous man in Itaewon. Tae-won pulled out his phone, made one call, spoke rapidly in Korean, words Maya couldn't understand. Then he hung up and looked at her again. His eyes were different now, softer, almost afraid. "When is your birthday?" he asked in English. Maya blinked. Of all the questions she'd expected, that wasn't one of them. March 7th, 2016. Tae-won's jaw tightened. He closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, they were wet. "And your mother, Grace Bennett. How is she?" "She's dying," Maya said, and her voice cracked. "That's why I'm here. The hospital said she has maybe 3 months without treatment. 6 months with it. But it costs." She gestured at the bill on his desk. Tae-won picked up the hospital paperwork. His hands shook as he read it. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Advanced. The same words that had destroyed Maya's world 3 months ago. "Why did you come to me?" he asked quietly. "Because everyone says you have money. Real money. And I." Maya's voice broke. "I don't have anyone else to ask." Now, Maya thought this was just about money. A desperate gamble. She'd beg, he'd either help or kill her, and that would be that. But here's what Maya didn't discover until 2 hours later, sitting in this same office. Her mother had been in contact with Tae-won's organization for 3 years before Maya was born. Grace had written letters, sent photographs, kept detailed records of her pregnancy. And when Maya was born, Grace had done something nobody knew about. She'd taken Maya's birth certificate and stamped it with Tae-won's family seal, a dragon character in red ink. The same seal Tae-won wore on a ring that never left his finger. Grace had marked Maya as his daughter 18 years ago, even though she'd never told him the child existed. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Back in that office, Maya had no idea. Tae-won walked to his desk and unlocked a drawer, pulled out a laptop. His fingers moved across the keyboard quickly, pulling up files Maya couldn't see from her angle. "Your mother," he said, not looking up. "Did she ever tell you about your father?" Maya stiffened. "She said he left before I was born. That he didn't want a mixed kid." Tae-won's hands stopped moving. For a long moment, he just stared at the screen and turned the laptop around so Maya could see. Her eyes scanned the screen once, twice. Then she looked up at him with confusion turning to shock. This is addressed to my mom. For 18 years. It was a bank transfer record. Monthly payments. 500,000 Korean wons. Every single third of the month. The recipient, G. Bennett. The payments went back 18 years. Hundreds of them. Maya did the math in her head. That was over 100 million Korean wons her mother had received. Money Maya never knew existed. The last payment was dated January 3rd, 2024. After that, nothing. "Your mother received this money for 18 years, Tae-won said quietly. "She never told you?" Maya shook her head. She felt dizzy. Why would someone send her money? Tae-won stood up and walked to a wall panel Maya hadn't noticed before. He pressed his palm against it, and it slid open, a hidden safe. Inside, he pulled out a photograph, handed it to Maya without a word. The woman in the photo was her mother, but younger, healthier, beautiful. She was wearing a white and red Korean wedding dress, a hanbok, Maya would learn later, and in her arms, she held a newborn baby wrapped in a blanket. Grace was smiling at the camera with pure joy on her face. Maya's hands trembled. "That's me. That's my mom holding me." "Yes," Tae-won said. His voice was rough. "That photo was taken March 10th, 2016. 3 days after you were born. How do you have this?" Tae-won sat back down, and suddenly he looked exhausted. Older than his 42 years. "Your mother's birth certificate. Do you have it with you?" Maya did. She'd brought every document she owned, birth certificate, hospital records, Anything that might convince this man she was telling the truth. She pulled the certificate from her envelope and handed it to him. Taewon studied it carefully. Then he held up his right hand, showing Maya the ring on his finger. A thick silver band with a red dragon engraved in it. He pointed to a small stamp in the corner of Maya's birth certificate. The same dragon. The exact same design. "This is my family seal," Taewon said quietly. "It's been passed down for 4 generations. The only person outside my family who ever had access to it was your mother. And she used it to mark your birth certificate. Do you understand what that means?" Maya stared at the matching symbols. Her brain felt slow, like it couldn't process what she was seeing. "I don't understand any of this." "Your mother didn't lie to you," Taewon said. "Not exactly. Your father did leave before you were born. But not because he didn't want you." He paused. "He was forced to leave, dragged onto a plane by his own family. And your mother disappeared because she knew what would happen if his enemies ever found out about you." The room tilted. Maya gripped the edge of the desk. "You're saying—" "I'm saying your mother is Grace Bennett, the woman I loved 20 years ago. The woman who saved my life in 2003. The woman who vanished in 2006 and took my daughter with her." Taewon's voice broke on the last word. "I'm saying you're my daughter, Maya. And I've been looking for you for 3 years." Maya couldn't breathe. This wasn't possible. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. Taewon pulled up another file on his computer. 3 months ago, in January, my predecessor died. He'd been my second in command for 15 years. When I inherited his accounts, I found something strange. Secret transfers. Every month for 18 years to someone named G. Bennett. He never told me about them. I started investigating in March, hired private investigators, searched for any Grace Bennett connected to Korea. That's when I found the surveillance footage of you and your mother in Itaewon. He showed Maya the screen. There were dozens of photos. Her and Grace at the market, walking through the streets. Maya carrying her mother's jewelry case. The timestamps went back 3 months. "I've been watching you since March," Taewon said. "But I didn't approach because I needed to be sure. I needed proof. And then you walked through my door today and said your mother's name, and I knew. I knew before I even saw the birth certificate." Maya felt tears burning her eyes. "The money stopped. That's why my mom got sick. She couldn't afford her medicine anymore and—" "No," Taewon interrupted gently. "Your mother got sick because cancer doesn't care about money. But you're right that the money stopped. My predecessor died in January, and I didn't know about the payments. If I'd known—" His voice trailed off. "If I'd known, I would have doubled them. I would have given her everything." "Why?" Maya whispered. "Why did he send her money if you didn't know about me?" "Because before I was dragged back to Korea in 2006, I told him something. I told him if anything ever happened to Grace Bennett, if she ever needed help, he should take care of it. I thought she was just someone I loved. I didn't know she was pregnant. I didn't know she'd have my child." Taewon's hands clenched into fists. "But he knew. Somehow he knew. And he kept your mother's secret for 18 years. Even from me." Maya wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "My mom never told me any of this. Because telling you would put you in danger," Taewon said. "I'm not a good man, Maya. I've done terrible things. I have enemies, people who would use you to hurt me. Your mother knew that. So she protected you the only way she could. By keeping you hidden. And now Maya was here. No longer hidden. Sitting across from her father, in a restaurant that fronted for a criminal empire. And in 3 months, maybe less, her mother would be gone. The only person who'd ever protected her from this world." Taewon opened another drawer in his desk. This one was locked with a combination only he knew. Inside was a wooden box that is old, worn at the edges, clearly opened many times over the years. "There's something else," he said quietly. "Something I need to show you." He placed the box on the desk between them. Maya watched as he lifted the lid. Inside were envelopes. Dozens of them. Maybe more. All addressed in Korean characters Maya couldn't read. Taewon pulled them out one by one. 19 letters, he said. One for every birthday. I wrote them starting in 2006, right after I got back to Seoul. I didn't know if Grace was pregnant. Didn't know if I'd ever have a child. But I wrote them anyway, just in case. Maya's hands shook as she touched the first envelope. The paper was yellowed with age. What do they say? The first one says, if you're reading this, it means your mother let me into your life. It means she forgave me for leaving. It means you exist. And that's the greatest gift I could ever receive. Taewon's voice cracked. Each year, I wrote another one. Told you about my life. About your mother. About how much I hope to meet you someday. Maya opened one of the envelopes with trembling fingers. Inside was a card with Korean writing she couldn't understand. But there was also something else. A small slip of paper with numbers printed on it. What's this? She asked. Taewon smiled sadly. That's an account number. Every card has one. Every year on your birthday, I opened a new savings account and put money in it. Then I wrote the number in that year's card and sealed it. He paused. I was building you a future, Maya. Even if I never got to see you. Even if your mother never forgave me. I wanted you to have something from me. Maya's throat burned. This man, this stranger, had been loving her from across the world for 8 years. Building her a life she didn't know existed. While she'd been sleeping in abandoned buildings, he'd been planning her future. Now, Maya thought this was just about money he'd saved. A father trying to make up for lost time with cash. But here's what Maya wouldn't discover until Taewon's lawyer opened the accounts 3 weeks later. Each account didn't just have money. They had instructions. Detailed plans for Maya's education, which schools to attend, which programs to join, which mentors to seek out. Taewon had been planning her entire life from thousands of miles away, building a roadmap for a daughter he'd never met. The 19 accounts together held 340 million Korean wons, roughly $250,000. But more than that, they held 18 years of hope written in careful Korean characters, each entry ending with the same words, "Until we meet, I'm waiting for you." Taewon wrote a letter for every single birthday he missed, hoping one day he'd see his daughter's face. If you have a heart, comment reunited to show you're rooting for them. If you skip this, you're missing the most important part of Maya's journey. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Back in that office, Maya was just trying not to cry. Why didn't you send them? She asked. Why keep them here? Because I didn't know where you were. Your mother made sure of that. She disappeared completely, no address, no phone, no trail. I searched for 3 years after I got back to Korea. Hired investigators. Called every contact I had. Nothing. Taewon closed his eyes. Eventually, I realized she didn't want to be found, that she had her reasons. So I stopped looking. But I kept writing. Every year. Every birthday. Just in case. Taewon stood up. Come with me. There's something else I need to show you. Something that explains why your mother ran. He led Maya out of the office, through a back hallway, to an elevator she hadn't noticed before. They rode up 3 floors in silence. When the doors opened, they stepped into what looked like a private apartment. Expensive furniture. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul. But Taewon walked past all of it to a wall that was covered, completely covered with photographs. Maya's breath caught in her throat. Every photo was of her mother. Young Grace. Healthy Grace. Smiling Grace. There she was at a bridge over a river, the city lights reflecting in the water behind her. There she was at a mountain temple wearing hiking clothes and laughing at something off camera. There she was in a traditional Korean dress, a different one than in the photo with baby Maya, standing in front of what looked like a family home. This is the Han River, Taewon said, pointing to the bridge photo. That's where we met for the first time after she saved my life. I'd been recovering in her apartment for 2 weeks. When I was finally strong enough to walk, she took me here. Said it was her favorite place in Seoul. He smiled at the memory. I kissed her that night. October 2004. Best decision I ever made. He moved to the temple photo. And this is where she used to pray. Every Sunday. She dragged me along even though I told her I wasn't religious. She said she wasn't praying for me. She was praying for both of us. For protection. For time. For a future that probably wouldn't come. His finger traced the edge of the frame. She knew, even then, that people like me don't get happy endings. How long were you together? Maya asked. 3 years. May 2003 to February 2006. Taewon pointed to more photos. Grace bargaining with a fruit vendor in Namdaemun. Grace laughing over Korean barbecue with her hair pulled back. Grace asleep on his couch with a medical textbook still open on her chest. We kept it secret. Had to. My family would have killed her if they'd known. Not because she was American. Not because she was black. Because she was someone I loved. And men in my position aren't allowed to love anyone. Love is weakness. Weakness gets you killed. But they found out anyway. Taewon continued, his voice going hard. December 2005. Your mother was 12 weeks pregnant. She'd just told me the week before. We were trying to figure out what to do, how to keep you safe, how to get me out of the organization, how to build a normal life. He laughed bitterly. We were idiots. There is no getting out. He pulled out his phone and showed Maya a photo she hadn't seen before. Grace at an airport. Her face was streaked with tears. Her hand was reaching toward the camera, toward whoever was taking the photo. February 14, 2006, Taewon said. Valentine's Day. My father found out about Grace. Sent 6 of his enforcers to my apartment. They beat me unconscious, dragged me to the airport, threw me on a plane back to Seoul. Your mother was there when they took me. She was screaming, trying to stop them. One of my father's men took this photo and sent it to me later. Said it was a reminder of what happens when I forget my place. Maya stared at the image of her mother. So young, so heartbroken, so alone. She was pregnant with me, Maya whispered. She was pregnant, and they took you. She didn't tell me, Taewon said. Not then. She knew if I found out about the baby, I'd fight my way back to her, get myself killed trying. So she kept quiet, let them take me, and then she vanished. He sat down heavily on a couch. I looked for her for 3 years, but Grace Bennett is a common name, and she knew how to hide. She changed cities, stopped using her email, paid everything in cash. It was like she'd never existed. Maya's mind raced. The money, the predecessor, the 18 years of silence. She stayed in contact with someone, she said slowly. That's how the money kept coming. Yes, somehow she trusted him. Maybe because he was older, less violent. Or maybe because she had no choice, she was alone, pregnant, broke. Whatever the reason, she reached out to him in 2006. Told him about you. Asked for help. Taewon shook his head. And he helped her. For 18 years. Never told me. Never gave me any hint that Grace had contacted him or that I had a daughter. He was protecting both of you. From me. From my world. From everything I'd become. Maya looked back at the wall of photographs. Her mother's smile in every image. The happiness that had been stolen from both of them. She loved you, Maya said. It wasn't a question. She loved you more, Taewon replied. That's why she left. That's why she never came back. Because loving me would have gotten you killed. And your mother would have done anything to keep you safe. And suddenly Maya understood. The years of silence. The lies about her father not wanting her. The poverty and the struggling and the refusal to ask for help. Her mother hadn't been running from shame. She'd been running from death. Protecting Maya from a world where being loved by the wrong person could get you murdered. Her mother had spent 18 years sacrificing everything so Maya could simply exist. Maya spent 18 years in the dark while her father built her a future she never knew. If you think she deserves a happy ending after everything she's been through, hit that like button, comment and share. Don't scroll past and leave her story unfinished. For 48 hours after Maya learned the truth, nothing happened. Taewon paid her mother's hospital bills immediately. All of them. Grace was moved to a private room with the best doctors in Seoul. Maya stayed in a hotel room Taewon arranged. the first real bed she'd slept in for 6 months. She thought this was the end of it. Her father would help from a distance, send money, maybe visit Grace once. Then they'd all go back to their separate lives. She was wrong. On June 17th, 2 days after Maya walked into that restaurant, Taewon's phone rang at 3 a.m., his second in command. Voice urgent. We have a problem. The hospital filed the payment records through the standard system. Someone intercepted them. They know you paid for Grace Bennett's treatment. They know the girl exists. Taewon was out of bed in seconds. Who knows? Everyone. By morning, it'll be on every underground network in Seoul. They're already asking questions. Who is Grace Bennett? Why does Kang care about some American woman? Who's the kid? Taewon's blood went cold. This was exactly what he'd feared. What Grace had feared 18 years ago. Within 24 hours, photographs appeared on encrypted networks used by Seoul's criminal organizations. Maya and Grace at the market in March. Maya collecting bottles in April. Grace weak and dying in May. And a new photo, Maya entering Taewon's restaurant on June 15th. The caption under the photos, written in Korean. Kang's weakness identified. By 6 a.m., 12 different organizations had downloaded those photos. By noon, someone had already tried to follow Maya's taxi to the hotel. Taewon's guards had stopped them. This time. Now, Maya thought she was just staying in a hotel while her mother got treatment. She didn't know that 8 blocks away, 3 rival organizations were already planning how to use her against Taewon. But here's what Maya wouldn't discover until Taewon showed her the security reports a week later. The leaked hospital payment wasn't an accident. Someone inside Taewon's own organization had sold the information deliberately. They'd been watching, waiting for any sign of weakness. And when Taewon had broken protocol to save an unknown woman and child, they'd seen their opportunity. The leak came from his chief financial officer, a man Taewon had trusted for 8 years, who'd been secretly working with a rival syndicate for the past 6 months. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Back in that hotel room, Maya had no idea any of this was happening. On June 18th, Taewon came to see her. His face was different, harder, colder. The man who'd shown her the photographs and birthday cards was gone. This was the crime lord everyone feared. Pack your things, he said without greeting. You're leaving Seoul tonight. Maya stood up from the hotel bed. What? Why? Because staying here will get you killed. He pulled out an envelope thick with cash and a passport. There's $50,000 in here. The passport is real, processed through official channels. You're flying to Los Angeles tonight. I have people there who'll help you get set up. Your mother will follow as soon as she's stable enough to travel. I don't understand. You just found me. Why are you? Because I made a mistake. Taewon interrupted. His voice was sharp. I should have paid the hospital bills in cash. Should have kept everything off the record. But I didn't, and now people know about you. Dangerous people. People who'll use you to hurt me. Let them try, Maya said. She was 8 years old and homeless and had nothing left to lose. I'm not running. Yes, you are. Taewon's tone left no room for argument. Your mother spent 18 years keeping you safe. I'm not going to destroy that in 3 days because I was careless. What Taewon didn't tell Maya, what he couldn't tell her was how bad it actually was. That morning, he'd received a message from the Choi Syndicate, his biggest rival. They'd sent him a photo of Maya's abandoned building in Dongdaemun, the building where she'd slept for 6 months. Someone had burned it to the ground. The message was clear. We know where she was. We can find where she is. And they'd attached something else to the message, medical records. Grace's medical records. From March 2024, the Choi Syndicate had been tracking Grace's cancer diagnosis for 3 months. They'd seen the hospital visits, the test results, the grim prognosis. And they'd done something that made Taewon's blood run cold. They'd stopped Taewon's predecessor's secret payments in January. Not because his predecessor died. Because the Choi Syndicate had hacked the accounts, identified the recipient as G. Bennett, and cut off the money deliberately. They'd been setting a trap for 3 months, waiting to see if the dying woman would lead them to Kang's weakness. And when Maya walked into that restaurant, they'd gotten exactly what they wanted. But Taewon didn't tell Maya any of this. He just handed her the envelope and said, "The car leaves in 2 hours. Be ready." Then he left before she could argue. Maya sat on the hotel bed, staring at the passport in her hands. Her photo, a new name she didn't recognize, a ticket to a country she'd never seen. And she thought about her mother, dying in a hospital room 8 blocks away, kept safe for 18 years through sacrifice and silence. Her mother, who'd given up everything, love, money, a normal life, just to keep Maya alive. What would her mother want her to do? The answer came the next day, June 19th. A nurse brought Maya an envelope. "Your mother asked me to give you this. She said to watch it alone." Inside was a USB drive. Maya borrowed a laptop from the hotel front desk. Plugged in the drive. A video file appeared, dated June 5th, 10 days before Maya had walked into Taewon's restaurant. She clicked play. Her mother's face filled the screen. Thin, weak, but her eyes were clear. "Maya, baby girl," Grace's recorded voice said. "If you're watching this, it means you found him. It means you went to Taewon Kong and asked for help. I'm so proud of you for being that brave." Grace took a shaky breath. "I need to tell you something I should have told you years ago. Your father didn't leave because he didn't want you. He was taken, forced onto a plane by his family. And I never told him I was pregnant because I knew what would happen if his enemies found out about you. They'd use you to control him, or they'd kill you to hurt him. Either way, you'd be in danger for the rest of your life." On screen, Grace wiped tears from her eyes. In 2006, right after Taewon left, 3 men came to my apartment. They worked for a rival organization, the Choi family. They knew I was pregnant. They offered me 50 million Korean wons to tell them when the baby was born. Said they'd keep tabs on you, use you when the time was right. And if I refused, they'd kill us both. Maya's hands shook so badly she almost dropped the laptop. "I refused the money," Grace continued. "Packed everything I owned that night. Changed my name. Moved cities. Disappeared completely. I spent 18 years making sure nobody could find us. Making sure you could just be a kid. Not a target. Not a weapon. Just my daughter." Grace's voice broke. "But now I'm dying, baby. And I can't leave you alone in the world with no one. So I'm sending you to find your father. I'm trusting that Taewon became the man I thought he could be. That he'll protect you the way I can't anymore." She leaned closer to the camera. "If he asks you to leave Seoul, if he tries to send you away, don't fight him. He's not abandoning you. He's doing what I did, protecting you. And sometimes, Maya, love looks like letting go." The video ended. Maya sat in the hotel room for a long time, staring at the blank screen. Her mother had known this would happen, had known that finding Taewon would put Maya in danger. But she'd sent Maya anyway, because dying alone was worse than risking everything. The envelope with cash and passport sat on the bed next to her. The easy way out, the safe way, the way her mother wanted. But Maya thought about Taewon's face when he'd showed her the photographs. The birthday cards written in hope. The 18 years of waiting. Her father had lost Grace once because he'd been forced to let her go. And now he was about to lose Maya the same way. She couldn't let that happen. On June 21st, 2 days after receiving the video, Maya didn't get in the car to the airport. Instead, she took a taxi to the address she'd memorized from Taewon's business card, his private compound on the outskirts of Seoul. The guards at the gate tried to stop her. She said 4 words, "I'm Kang's daughter." They let her through. Taewon met her at the front door. His face was a mixture of relief and fear. "Maya, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be on a plane to—" "My mom told me in the video that you're my father," Maya interrupted. Her voice was steady even though her heart was pounding. "She told me about the Choi family, about the threats, about how she spent 18 years running. And she told me to leave if you asked me to." She dropped her small backpack on the ground. "But I'm not her, and I'm done running. So I'm staying." Taewon stared at her. This tiny 8-year-old girl who'd been homeless 6 months ago, now standing in front of Seoul's most dangerous crime lord and refusing to back down. "You don't know what you're choosing," he said quietly. "Yes, I do. I'm choosing you. I'm choosing to stop hiding. I'm choosing to be your daughter for real. Not a secret. Not someone you protect from a distance." Maya's eyes filled with tears, but her voice didn't waver. "My mom spent her whole life keeping me safe. But she's dying, and soon you're the only family I'll have left. So either we do this together or we don't do it at all." And in that moment, Taewon knew he had two choices. Send her away and keep her safe but lose her forever. Or claim her publicly and risk everything to keep her close. He'd already lost Grace by letting her go. He couldn't lose Maya too. "Okay," he said finally. "Okay, you can stay." Grace sacrificed her happiness and lived in poverty for nearly 2 decades just to keep Maya safe from the underworld. Most people wouldn't have the strength to do that. Show some respect for her sacrifice by following, or are you just going to walk away from their story like everyone else did? Once Maya decided to stay, Taewon had to make a choice that went against every instinct he developed in 20 years of survival. He had to make her visible. On July 10th, 2024, less than a month after Maya walked into his restaurant, Taewon sent out a message to every major criminal organization in Seoul. A meeting, neutral location, all syndicate leaders required to attend. This kind of gathering hadn't happened in 8 years. The last time it had been to divide territory after a gang war left 60 people dead. So when the message went out, everyone assumed the same thing. Kang was either declaring war or admitting defeat. They were wrong about both. The meeting took place in a private room at a high-end hotel in Gangnam. Neutral ground. No weapons allowed. Everyone checked at the door by independent security. 6 syndicate leaders showed up, each bringing 2 advisors. 18 of the most dangerous people in Seoul, sitting around a conference table like they were discussing business contracts instead of lives and territories. Maya watched from behind a two-way mirror in an adjacent room. Taewon had insisted she see this. "You need to understand what world you're choosing," he told her that morning. "These are the people who'll want to use you, the people your mother protected you from." The leader of the Choi Syndicate spoke first. He was 60, gray-haired, with scars on his hands from decades of violence. "Kang, we're all busy men. Why are we here?" Taewon stood up. In front of him on the table was a small wooden box. "I called this meeting to invoke an old code. One that hasn't been used in my lifetime. Maybe not in yours either." The room went quiet. 3 weeks ago, someone I care about walked into my life. Someone I didn't know existed. And within 48 hours, her photograph was on every underground network in Seoul. Her location, her routines, her vulnerabilities. Taewon's voice was steady, but Maya could see his hands were clenched. "The Choi Syndicate has been particularly interested in her." The gray-haired man didn't deny it. He just smiled slightly. Business is business. What the Choi leader didn't know. Taewon wasn't here to negotiate. He was here to invoke something that hadn't been used in 40 years. Something that, once spoken, couldn't be undone. "Agreed," Taewon said. "Which is why I'm here today. To make sure everyone understands exactly what kind of pressure point they're dealing with." He opened the wooden box. Inside was a ring, thick silver with a red dragon engraved in it. The same ring Maya had seen in her birth certificate photo. Taewon's family seal. For generations old. The Choi leader leaned forward, a slight smile on his face. He thought he knew what came next. He was wrong. But here's what none of them knew, what Maya herself wouldn't understand until Taewon explained it to her later that night. The family seal ring could only be given away in 3 circumstances under traditional Korean codes: as payment of a blood debt, as a marriage bond, or as acknowledgement of bloodline, passing it to a legitimate heir. By taking the ring out of that box in front of 6 syndicate leaders, Taewon was declaring which of those 3 he was about to invoke. And once declared in front of witnesses, the choice couldn't be undone. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Back in that conference room, Taewon was holding the ring up for everyone to see. "This ring has been in my family since 1892. he said. Passed from father to son. From generation to generation. It's never been worn by anyone outside the direct bloodline. Never been given to an heir who wasn't male. Until today. He gestured to the two-way mirror. To Maya watching from the other side. Come in. Maya's heart stopped. This wasn't the plan. Taewon had said she'd just observe. Stay hidden. Stay safe. But the door to her room opened. One of Taewon's guards stood there, waiting. She didn't have a choice. Maya walked into the conference room. 18 pairs of eyes turned to look at her. An 8-year-old girl in jeans and a t-shirt, standing in front of Seoul's most powerful criminals. Taewon put his hand on her shoulder. This is Maya Taewon Bennett, my daughter, born March 7, 2016. Hidden for 8 years by her mother, who knew that my world would destroy her. She came to me 3 weeks ago asking for help. And I'm claiming her today as my acknowledged heir. The room exploded. Not with violence but with noise. Men arguing in Korean, voices rising. Someone slamming their fist on the table. The gray-haired Choi leader stood up. You can't be serious. A girl? An American? You're throwing away centuries of tradition for... I'm invoking Hyol Tong. Taewon interrupted. His voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Bloodline protection. The old code from the Joseon dynasty. And I'm doing it in front of all of you as witnesses. Everyone went silent. Hyol Tong. Maya had never heard the word before, but she felt its weight in the room. The way every man there stopped moving, stopped arguing, just stared at Taewon like he'd done something irreversible. The code says that once bloodline is publicly acknowledged in front of assembled leadership, that bloodline becomes sacred. Taewon continued. To harm acknowledged blood is to violate tradition that supersedes territory, supersedes rivalry, supersedes gang law. Anyone who touches her doesn't just declare war on me. They declare war on the code itself. And everyone here who witnesses this invocation becomes bound to enforce it. He slipped the ring onto Maya's finger. It was too big, hung loose on her small hand. But the symbolism was clear. So here's your choice, Taewon said to the room. Accept her. Honor the code. Let her exist in peace. Or challenge it. Violate sacred tradition. And face war with every syndicate at this table who still respects the old ways. He turned to face the Choi leader directly. What's it going to be? The gray-haired man's jaw was tight. His hands were fists. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then slowly he sat back down. The code is the code, he said quietly. I accept your claim. One by one, the other leaders nodded. The youngest, a man who'd lost his brother to Taewon 5 years ago, nodded with his jaw clenched. The oldest, Park Sun-woo, nodded with something like sadness in his eyes. Maya was protected, not because anyone liked it, but because tradition demanded it. But then the oldest man in the room spoke up. His name was Park Sun-woo, 73 years old, scarred face, former head of a syndicate he'd passed to his nephew 10 years ago. He'd lost his own daughter to gang violence in 1998. She'd been 17, caught in crossfire during a territorial dispute. The code protects her from us, Park said softly. But Kong, the code doesn't protect her from your choices. As long as you stay in this world, she'll never be fully safe. Men like us don't get happy endings. And neither do our children. Taewon's face was stone. I know. Then why? Park asked. Why not send her away? Give her a normal life. Because she chose to stay, Taewon said, looking down at Maya. And I wasn't going to take that choice away from her. Not like it was taken from her mother. The meeting ended 20 minutes later. The leaders left one by one. Maya and Taewon stayed in that conference room for a long time after everyone was gone. That man was right, Maya said quietly. I'll never be completely safe as long as you're still. She trailed off. I know, Taewon said, which is why things are going to change. Over the next 3 months, July through September 2024, Taewon did something no one thought possible. He started dismantling his criminal empire. Not with violence, not with war, but with strategy. Every territory he gave up, he thought of Maya. Every deal he made, every concession, every moment of looking weak, he did it knowing his daughter was watching. Learning that power meant nothing if you had no one to protect. He shifted operations to legitimate businesses, paid off rivals, handed territory to neutral parties, turned his restaurant into an actual restaurant, not a front. He didn't leave the organization that would have gotten him killed, but he stepped back, became less visible, less powerful, less of a threat, and he built something else, something for Maya. Grace died on August 23, 2024, peacefully, in a private hospital room with Maya holding her hand. Taewon was in the hallway, close enough to matter, far enough to respect Grace's last moments with her daughter. The funeral was small, just Maya, Taewon, and 3 of Grace's old friends from her medical volunteer days. They buried her in a quiet cemetery outside Seoul, with a headstone that read, Grace Bennett, 1983 to 2024. She saved lives. 2 days after the funeral, Taewon's lawyer came to Maya with paperwork. 3 businesses, all legally registered in Maya's name, all funded by Taewon's now legitimate money, all set up with trustees to manage operations until Maya was old enough to run them herself. The first business, a medical supply company, specializing in equipment for underserved communities, named Grace's Promise. The second, a cultural exchange center in Itaewon, connecting Korean and international communities, providing language classes, cultural programs, community support, named Bridge House. The third, a foundation for mixed-race children in Korea, scholarships, counseling, advocacy, named the Bennett Foundation. Maya was 8 years old, and she was now running 3 companies. Your mother spent her life helping people, Taewon told her. Now you get to continue that work. By November 2024, Maya was speaking fluent Korean. She'd learned it in 4 months. Intensive lessons every day, cultural immersion, total dedication. She needed to communicate with the people her businesses served, needed to understand the world she'd chosen to be part of. She and Taewon met every Wednesday evening at the Mountain Temple, the same place Grace used to pray. They'd sit in silence mostly, sometimes talk about business, sometimes talk about Grace, sometimes just exist in the same space, father and daughter, learning how to be a family. In public, they maintained distance, different last names, different addresses. Maya lived in a protected apartment with 2 guards who looked like staff. Taewon visited quietly, never obviously. The world knew they were connected, but the details stayed private. It was safer that way. On November 15, 2024, exactly 5 months after Maya had walked into Taewon's restaurant, she spoke at a youth event for mixed-race Korean kids. 50 teenagers in a community center in Itaewon, all of them navigating the same discrimination Maya had faced her whole life. She wore her mother's red dress, the one Grace had worn to special occasions. It was too big, but Maya didn't care. And pinned to the dress was Taewon's family crest, the dragon seal, made into a small pin. My name is Maya Bennett, she told the room. 5 months ago, I was homeless. My mom was dying, and I thought I had nobody in the world who cared about me. I was wrong.